And what's up, guys? Technical Tinkers here. So I normally record my daily vlog video around 3 a.m. In the morning and then just post it as, again, trying to build a backlog of videos. If you're unfamiliar, I try to get my exposition down, but I'm a small business owner. I have a business that has nothing to do with 3D printing, but I'm interested in 3D printing. I see the potential, so I'm trying to prove the concept here at home. So I figured I'd shoot the video in the middle of the day today so you can kind of see my workflow. I do most of my 3D print stuff here in the afternoon, or my afternoon, because obviously I'm on a kind of a different timetable than most people. So if you've been following the saga of the D20 Cube, we've just entered the last layer of the D20 Cube. I'm printing it all in one big go. It's about I'm gonna say 390 millimeters across. There's very little room there between the model and the gantry. And so I've been watching this thing with bated breath the whole time, super anxious right now. And now that we're at the very, very end, the anxiety gets crunk up to 11. But doing it all in one go, the surface finish looks fantastic, very uniform all over. Doing the middle section of the coffee cup here to kind of more wall loops, a little more rigid. I kind of want a beefy coffee cup. Now, the version that I designed does not open. It glues all together. It's just a model, you know, it's an art model. So a lot of people telling me my problem with Cobra 3 over here is that I might have a clogged extruder, clogged nozzle, something wrong. So again, I have a spare print head here for the Cobra 2 Max, and I keep this repaired and at the ready. In case I do encounter a problem with these, I can just swap it out, and that reduces my downtime, and then I can be repairing this while the system still prints. However, I'm not swapping it out yet because today the larger nozzles come. So I got a 0.6, a 0.8, and a 1.0 nozzle, because if I'm gonna be focusing in on these really big models, I'm gonna go ahead and start using a bigger nozzle so I can get a thicker layer height. That reduces the fidelity down quite a bit, as I'm sure most of you know. But for a lot of these models, it's about the size of the model, not the sort of the detail. And if I do if I go to sell something that requires a lot of detail and is large, then I could just go back to the 0.4 millimeter. So what I'm gonna do is, once those nozzles get here, I'm gonna go ahead and pop one in here. That way I can just swap it in and get going. Thing too, and I should probably do like an upgraded farm tour video, but my 4 printers are here in this kind of recessed portion of the garage. It allows plenty of room for my wife to park. This is a double garage, but only she parks in here. The garage is air conditioned, and I've got my printers over here, but it's looking like I'm probably gonna have to remove these two, because I did pre-order an Elegoo Orange Storm Giga, and it is about 4 feet by 4 feet by 5 feet tall. And so for it to fit in this corner, it would come out pretty far. These printers won't really work here, so I'm gonna have to think up some other solution. Now, if I'm running the Cobra 2 Maxes in super slow mode, I could probably get away with having all of them on a shelf, a double-decker shelf. It's just that, you know, the shelves would have to be quite tall. It'd be probably about as tall as this, and I could never really run them in speed mode because the vibration is just too violent. So luckily for me, though, it won't ship for another month. And so I've got some time to sort of plot this out and go through with it and figure it all out. Lucky for us, it looks like Cobra 3 decided to start printing. We're doing a concept print here. And again, the afternoons when I do most of my design work, my mental work or whatever. So I'm doing a little test print here, and I'll show you what I'm working on. I'm really liking this voxel PLA. They don't sponsor me, or they don't pay me or anything like that. But I did see Aurora Tech uses voxel pretty regularly, so I went ahead and grabbed some. And every print I've done with it, I haven't done a lot of prints with it, but it's really good stuff. All the prints that I do with it come out really great. Over here on the A1, we're doing just a very simple, I just downloaded a very simple parts tray and embossed it with the logo of the new sort of print entity that I have. And I'm thinking for when people buy computer parts or crypto mining stuff, I'll just include one of these for free, you know, embossed with the logo, just kind of a little extra special something for the customer, because people buying crypto stuff or functional stuff could probably benefit from having a little screws and parts tray. And so over here, what am I working on now? While I was trying to think up some stuff, I was getting some inspiration here, and I was looking over here, and I thought it might be cute as like a large art model to have some of this, you know, like Acme Dynamite TNT kind of thing. So I'll just over here in Tinkercad very easily. Now, when I do these big models, I do not want to paint. I am allergic to painting and post-production. So I figured what I'd do is kind of take the text and cut out a spot for it, reduce it down a little bit, and then print separate the text. That way when it comes out, I can just pop the letters in, glue them in, and then I could have a nice, clean, contrasting sort of 3D color. And then if we sort of break this up, you can kind of see the thinking behind it. Well, let's not do it that way. Let's just go back. And maybe you can kind of see the vibe I was going for here. Yeah, so it's kind of like, you know, a bundle of TNT, and then I could put the text on all of it, and then from there, what I could do is kind of put the fuses together, print the fuses in white, and then just kind of like print a little red piece on the end as like, you know, the flame or something like that. Thought it might be cute. We'll see how it works out. Again, just a concept, and this is how 99% of my concepts go. I print them and then I figure out some reason why it won't work. But I think this is simple enough and kind of quirky enough that maybe someone would be attracted to it if they're into kind of like the Looney Tunes vibe. But we'll see how it works out. And one of the other things too is this is a just a model I downloaded, attribution, so it's ready to go, but it comes unpainted. So I think this is a little boy, the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Because I'm doing so many of those gun models, and I got the Orange Storm Giga coming, I thought it might be cool to do like full size, or not full size, but low scale missiles, bombs, you know, other firearmy type stuff. And so this is the first nuclear weapon deployed in combat. And so I downloaded this, and what I'll probably do is go through and paint this. I ordered some Army green PLA, matte PLA, along with some matte gray PLA. And those are really the only two colors used in this model. And so if I print this, you know, maybe I could slice it up into parts, you know, just kind of maybe cut it in half, and that'll allow me to print basically 800 millimeters. So, you know, maybe about 3 feet tall. You know, I could cut it into, you know, I could cut it here in the middle, and then maybe get something that's like, you know, 5 feet tall if I wanted to. I'm not sure what kind of interest there would be for that, but it's a pretty simple design. Additionally, I could do this on my bamboo, but I'd be capped at, you know, 250 millimeters. But I could just load it in the AMS and have it print in full color just right out of the gate. So, you know, it could go different ways with it. I think maybe actually there might be more interest in the model if I printed it at like 256, you know, then it could be like a desk ornament or something like that. Another kind of concept. That's kind of how the afternoon goes, just kind of, you know, tinkering around and playing with different designs and seeing what works, and, you know, kind of throwing little pieces and parts to the different printers to see kind of what's going to work out, you know. And again, ordering that Orange Storm Giga. I know I got another month, but I'm kind of optimistic about it because it's going to allow me to print so much larger stuff. Now, it is slow, and so if I print, say, a D20 Cube on it, even with like a 1 millimeter layer height, it's probably going to take around the same amount of time to print as it takes to print now with a 0.4 millimeter, but it'll be that much larger. I mean, you're talking about, you know, probably 750 millimeters wide, so essentially double the size of the cube I currently print now, plus much taller stuff. And if I extrapolate and use the same method I use to print those Glocks, you know, I could just kind of scale that up, and I could make a Glock that's literally the size of, like, you know, a wall, you know, and make something that's, you know, 10 feet wide by 4 feet tall. I don't know if anyone's going to want that, but if you have a gun shop or you're just really into guns, then maybe you would. Love it. Technicals here. It's the next morning, Friday, October 18th, 2024. So we're checking in on what happened through the course of the night. Did the big D20 Cube finish? Well, we'll start here, middle section of the coffee ring. Came out great. Or like I was saying, I increased the wall loops just to make it super more rigid. It's actually this is just a cock ring for me. But the D20 Cube, ta-da, came out great. I have not touched it yet. I was waiting for my morning recap video to kind of pop it off. It's probably screwing up the leveling of the bed, but I don't know that that's avoidable. Let's see if I can get this thing off. There we go. All right, so let's take this in and put it under a microscope. All right, so first things first, the Devil Girl that we've been printing. I did another test because if you've been following the channel, and again, welcome to everybody. I was having a lot of trouble with supports. It seems like it was filament dependent. So I did a test with PETG as the interface layer, because PETG doesn't stick to PLA. A lot of people use it for an interface layer, but I had some reservations about it because, well, the complexity of the model. Now, there are a lot of models that are far more complex than this, but there were a lot of areas I had some concerns about. The supports broke away very cleanly. There's still some little parts here I got to pull off, but the usual areas where they would really stick, and I couldn't get them off here in the crotchal region, here on the lower portion of her back, because the model sits flat like this, were often just plagued with issues. But if we can kind of zoom in there, it's a little rough, but they broke away cleaner than they ever have before. My main issue, though, is the stringiness of the PETG. As it was pulling away from the model, going into the prime tower, the stringing, which is not uncommon, would kind of sort of become part of it. Now, again, PETG was only the interface layer, and I did not flush to infill, but it seems to me that some of it still made its way into infill. I'm not exactly sure why or how to really turn that off, or to specify which filament is only to be used as infill, because I think it just figures it out by layer. If you know about that, let me know. But when I sliced the model and looked at the filament, it looks like, you know, it obviously the interface layer was all PETG, but in some areas it was putting it in infill. And I had this at 0% infill, but it still puts some infill. And I don't know that there's a way around that, but I increased the wall loops. The model is super sturdy. It's by far the best example that I've made so far, but this gives me a lot of concern, because like this, where it would string out and kind of get caught up in the rest of the model, you can see, I mean, it's black PETG, so, you know, normally it's kind of a little worse here on her thigh area. You know, you can't just take a heat gun to that and melt it off, because it's going to kind of fuse that into the model, and you're going to have these sort of small areas of discoloration. And, you know, I don't want to take a piece of sandpaper to it and try to, you know, get it off. And, you know, trying to pull it off is useless, because it's so thin and wispy, it's never going to come off. Now, again, a lot of people might be saying like, well, all you have to do is sand the model and then touch it up with paint. Again, I don't do post-production. It's very little as possible. And if I do post-production, the price has to go through the roof, because this is not a labor of love. This is me prototyping and figuring things out to get to a point of mass production. Now, is this worthy of mass production? I don't know, but maybe I'll run into a model in the future that is enormously popular that I need to really stamp out of a press. So I need to figure these kind of things out now. So while I'll count this as a win, and again, thank you to all the suggestions, I'm thinking that because all the matte PLA arrives today, I'll probably do another model, just 100% matte PLA, very fine layer height, 3 interface layers, top Z distance of like 0.23. And I'll see what kind of results I get out of that. It's just gonna be another 3 days for it to print. But if I get to that point and it's still kind of leaving a lot to be desired, then I may try dissolvable filaments. I haven't tried those before. A lot of people have mixed results with those. Now you might say, well, that's a lot of post-production, but it's easy post-production, because dissolvable filaments, I take it off the printer and pitch this in a bucket of water, maybe with some kind of agitator in it, and then all the filaments are gone, or all the supports are removed, versus me sitting here trying to crack off supports off this thing, because that counts as post-production, removing supports. And again, I think a lot of people are like, well, why are you so finicky about, why are you so concerned about the post-production? That's just part of the process. Again, trying to scale, trying to think about mass production, scalability. You know, I can do this, but can an employee do it? Because you don't want to have to train people on doing something if you don't have to. If it's just kind of a no-brainer, take this off, put it in a bucket of water, and you take it out an hour later, and it's a pristine sort of art model. So we're going to count this as a win. But I still think I need to get it a little bit better. And finally, the D20 Cube. Been waiting for a very, very long time on this. Did it with Sunlu PLA. I dialed the speed way down, 60 millimeters per second on this. 0.4 nozzle. My bigger nozzles are, I think, in my mailbox, so I have to swap those out today, so stay tuned for the progress on that. So if I could run at the same speed with that layer height, that should significantly take down the speed of it, but it came out, I'm going to say beautiful. You know, could it be better? Yeah, if I went at like 0.12 layer height, I'm sure it would look a lot better. But look at this. This is I think it's 0.25. It might even be 0.28 or 0.3. But overall, the surface finish it's somewhat textured, but it is uniform. And that's probably the most important thing that I think, is that it's a uniform finish. There are some areas which are perfect, and then it kind of goes into, a little kind of textured and then something else. It's just uniform all the way over, every number. There's no overhang stringiness. The supports, it seems like a 20-degree overhang threshold. So watch me pull the support off and the whole side of it comes off. Beautiful, look at that. Clean, clean, clean. Beautiful, excellent. So this obviously will get painted, but I'm thinking, if we can repeat this result with, with a bigger nozzle and get kind of a similar sort of quality, then we can start doing it in just direct filaments. So like silk filaments for the D20 Cube, some of those multicolor, color changing type filaments would probably be pretty impressive with this, because this is a prime candidate for zero post-production, like no painting whatsoever. And then even if I could kind of figure out how to scale down these numbers, just kind of do a negative of it and scale it down, add a bevel to it, something where it would slide in, because you can't just take this and then make it a little bit smaller, because it doesn't scale that way. It needs to scale from the outside, from the outer perimeters in, and not just from the outer in that one direction. But thinking if I could print numbers in like black or white, you could print this all in one color and then print the numbers in a contrasting color like white or black, and then fit those numbers in and glue them in place and make a more striking appearance. But just leaving it like this, you could print the whole thing in like that metallic silk, the thing that those dragons are printed in that everyone wants. I hate that kind of stuff. I hate that kind of color, that multicolor stuff. I like everything in black and white. But we could print the whole thing in one color and fulfill my dream, my 3D printing business wet dream of taking a model off a printer, pulling off the supports, putting it in a box, and shipping it out the door and waiting for our billions to roll in. So big success on this. It's very satisfying to sort of get this finally. Kind of rough there. Kind of like a little bit rough there, and only on that one side. I'm not sure why it would kind of do that. But overall, I mean, the thing's beautiful. I'm going to count that as a win for such a big model, too. Again, this is about just under 400 millimeters squared, and with my newest tool that should be arriving next month, I'm going to be able to take it up a notch. And so that's right, I did order one of these, an Orange Storm Gig. I pre-ordered it, so it doesn't ship until November 18th. So when that comes in, there's obviously the setup on that machine is much more involved than really any other machine. So I'm going to have to dial it in. I'm going to have to find a place for it. But once I get that 800 millimeter squared or cubed build plate, there's 800,000 on the build plate. So that's going to really open up the possibilities for, big art stuff, because again, I could print this much larger. It'd be the size of a beach ball at that point. And maybe there's a market. There's obviously a market for people that want big stuff. And so having that printer will sort of allow me to fulfill that. Furthermore, too, with what these big models cost versus what, the cost to produce versus what, you can expect a profit on it, you wouldn't have to sell too many of them to bankroll another machine. Because, in the overall scheme of things, you look at industrial machines and regular business, or just buying businesses outright, if you look at it through that lens, oftentimes it's like, how many years do you have to operate this thing for before it ROIs? And, it's usually judged in years. But with this kind of stuff, with the markup that on 3D printed products, depending on the product, depending on the segment, you can really start bankrolling more machines with just a few sales of some of these items. So definitely optimistic about that. Definitely optimistic about large prints in general, because it seems like an underserved market because of all the headaches that come associated with it. But appreciate everybody helping me dial in the settings and kind of come closer to that. Let me know what you want to see in the comments below. Appreciate everybody subscribing to the channel and all the comments and engagement, both good and bad. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Be sure to like the video and subscribe for more content like this. I'm the Technicals. See you next time.